welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Welcome to Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. This is Jessica. I am your host today, and I am here with the author Wesley Chu. He's written tons and tons of books. And this book, The Art of Destiny, is the second in a series. The first one was The Art of Prophecy, which was super fun and played a lot with the whole hero's journey trope, which I love because as much as a person who loves stories, as much as I love the hero's journey, it's good to see it go in another direction every now and then. And this was much appreciated. So the Art of Destiny is it centers around the same world and the same characters, but it takes sort of like a time jump and also takes another direction. So if you would like to just kind of set up where we started and sort of where these characters' journeys begin now in The Art of Destiny, we can chat about it.
Oh, well, first of all, thanks for having me. Hello,
You're
everybody.
welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna preface this really quick by admitting that I am really bad at describing my own stuff.
Oh no.
I'm gonna mess this up. So you're asking me what's going on with the Art of Destiny or the Art of Prophecy?
Well, kind of bring us up to speed with, just sort of where we left the characters at the end of The Art of Prophecy, and then sort of how it sets us up for this next installment.
Okay, so the Art of Prophecy centers around, what happens if prophecy is broken. What are the effects of a religion, of a mandate, of a philosophy that suddenly no longer has proven to be true? How does that affect the people and the government and the culture? And so just a little quick background, the prophesied hero of the TND, which is this prophesized hero who will defeat this evil demigod Khan, has been raised in opulence his entire life. And now that the prophecy is broken, he has no longer has his future is now gray. He doesn't know what's going on. So that happens in the end of the first book. And in the second book, The Art of Destiny, it's kind of a play on the theme of destiny, is what happens when destiny no longer is ordained. And it's about Jian and his friends and the characters involved in that story finding their own way. Kind of like, now that the path before them is unclear, is gray, how do they kind of discover who they are and where they go and how they kind of like make decisions for themselves as opposed to what prophecy tells them to do?
So I love all of it. I really have to say, like, there's some really interesting characters. So there's Jen and there's also Taishi, who, has decided to take on training this hero who did not actually get a chance to be a hero. And I really like their interactions together. I really enjoyed watching them
Thank you.
grow together and just sort of, yeah, exactly. But I have to say, I'm a huge fan of Kasami. And that was a storyline that I really enjoyed following as well. Do you have, like, out of all these characters, did you like find somebody who sort of latched onto you a little bit more than you were expecting?
Well, let me ask you this. Did you like Kasami all the way through, or did you because part one Kasami and part two Kasami have very different journeys?
Yes, I liked the fact that part one Kasami grew into part two Kasami, and I really appreciated the journey, how the journey went. Because again, like we were talking about, sort of subverting expectations and also just sort of playing with character tropes. I really do enjoy characters that are kind of, they're one way, but they're kind of, I don't want to say gray, but there's potential for them to grow into something else. Maybe it's the anime fan in me, but like those always end up being my favorite characters. The ones where in the beginning you're just like, oh my God, it's you again. And then by the end, you're like, oh, it's you again. I can't wait to spend more time with you. And that is how I felt about Kasami. So, I'm just kind of curious, when you write these characters, do they do what you expect, or do they kind of do their own thing and you follow them?
So okay, so this is kind of so two things. So Kasami by far is the most controversial character. There are many people who like hated her in the first book because she's so mean, she's so evil, blah blah blah. But then they discover her layers, and suddenly at the very end they're like, oh my gosh, she was my favorite character by the end of book two. So I really appreciated that when people finally like, oh, to give her the chance. It kind of like, I intentionally started her at one place that I knew was controversial because she had a long ways to go. So when they tell me after they finished book two that, oh god, that was such a fulfilling journey for her, I'm like, that's what I was going for. Now, in terms of whether that was my intention, partially, but a lot of it is I'm a big believer of free will for my characters. People talk about being pantsers and plotters. I'm generally a very big plotter, but when it comes to plotting and writing my characters out, like I said, I'm a big fan of giving these characters free will and having them the opportunity to kind of like define themselves. Now, given they all spring out of my head, so it's like how do you give them free will? But I will plot extensively on a book before I start writing, and then I start writing it, and and at some point when I want them to, do a certain thing, make a right turn, go into this house, kill this person or whatever. There are many, many times when after having layered these characters, to this point, they don't want to do what I want them to do. They don't want to go into this house. They don't want to drive this car. They don't want to go into battle, whatever. And even though my outline requires it, now I just let them make that choice. I let them make because it feels more organic, it feels more real. And then instead of trying to like force them to go into this, a square into a triangular peg, I let them make the choice that they want to make, and then I just re-outline. And there are many times when I re-outline, by the time I finish a book, I'm on like version 10 of the outline because I'm always re-outlining, giving them the opportunity to make that choice, and then like going back and like figuring out how to salvage the rest of the plot.
That's pretty cool. It's so funny. I kind of have grown to dislike the pantser and plotter trope because I feel like there's so many things in between. It's not necessarily just one or the other. Like eh, there are people who are very much like, I'm going to do whatever, I'm just going to let it go. And there are people who are very, like must follow structure. But I feel like there's, a spectrum. And I think that what you're talking about is really great because, it feels like organic writing. It feels very much like the characters are living and breathing. And it also fills out the world a lot more because sometimes the way that characters sort of grow informs the world that they're in. Was there so do you that said, like, did anybody surprise you? Do you have a favorite character to write?
I wouldn't say, I mean, it's kind of like being a parent, you don't really have a favorite kid. They're all a little different. Like I didn't want to make the characters, I wanted to have as little overlap their with their arc as possible. And then every character has an intention, has a driving motivation, so that when the reader follows the story of a particular character, they are getting something different. If I've had two characters who are just doing a romantic subplot, there's an overlap there that I'm trying to avoid. But as for having a favorite character, I mean, it's like Kasami's fun to write. I think she's extremely like, I could get a little edgy. I can like do little crazy things. But then when it comes to like, to be honest, one of my favorite writing characters to write are I love writing old people. I love writing crotchety old people. It brings me joy because I feel like when you have an older character, they've had so much experience, so many layers, so many nuances in their decision making process and how they lived, that it's a gold mine of things to kind of dig through. So that's what I love about Taishi, is that she's an older disabled woman. So, and then like no, and then Jen has that fresh face, earnest but kind of kind of arrogant but kind of dumb. Kind of, I was like, it's just like everybody's got a little something for me to play with. Sally's the righteous hero who is bucking tradition, and that there's some baggage that goes along with that. So like having these four characters being so different and opposite really gives me that. And then as a writer, it allows me to kind of like really explore many different things without getting a little like bored or heavy-handed in one trope or category.
I also want to ask about the fight scenes and just sort of like placement. While you're writing your story, do you know when they're going to happen, or does that sort of happen organically also, depending on your character's choices?
I mean, a lot of large set pieces for fight scenes I plan out ahead of time. But as I've become more experienced as a writer, I find that I plot a lot more by feel sometimes. So even though I have some, I've outlined a certain arc going here, not there's many times where like, this needs some scene here, either action or fight scene, to kind of push certain things along. I mean, action scenes are kind of like my like one of my specialties. I'm known for my action scenes. I'm known for having like good fight scenes, but in my opinion, a good fight scene should do a lot of heavy lifting. It's not just fun action. A good fight scene should be pushing the plot along. There should be consequences. There should be world building. There should be character development. Because there are so many facets of a fight scene that kind of explain who the character is. That, but then you also have to be careful, because a fight scene can be boring or can be excessive if it's not done properly. So it's a fine balancing act. There's many times when I have a fight scene where like, well, this fight scene doesn't justify its existence here in this part of the book. Then I have to remove it. So in many cases, a fight scene is like the most delicate part of a book for me.
Yeah, I could see that. And I think crafting them, it takes a lot. Um, so when you're writing them, I know that you had done martial arts, or do you still do martial arts?
I mean, I'm almost 50. Okay. I'm almost 50. And look, like I did a lot of martial arts in the past. I had some stunt background as well. And when you're young and you do that kind of sport, and you take a hit in the head or whatever, and you're like, oh wow, that's a good hit. But when you get older and you hit in the head, you're like, wow, that's a concussion. Injuries that takes me a couple of days to recover from, taking me like 2 weeks now, and I need to see my acupuncturist. So I am retired, and I've been retired for about man, it's been almost 20 years now, to be honest. But it's one of those things where when you do a lot of martial arts younger in life, it's very formative in your life, so that a lot of the advantages, a lot of the ethics, a lot of the muscle memory that you have as a kid or as a young person still stay with you to this day. But definitely it has helped me with choreography. But it's all, again, like when you do stunt work and you do choreography for stunt work, you have to be extremely exact where your movements are, where your beats are, your placement, your timing. It has to be, or if you're not exact, somebody gets hurt. When you do it in long form prose, you have to be careful, because if you're too exact, the story gets boring. Early on in my career, when I wrote the first early drafts of The Lives of Tao, which is my debut novel, I was very proud of the fact that every fight scene I wrote, I could reenact. I can do the exact moves, beat for beat. But then when my wife was reading this early draft, she was like, flipping through the pages. She was like, "Oh man, at this point, this fight scene's so long, you're just mentally masturbating now," because I love fight scenes. So because of that, it's over time you have to kind of learn that less is more in prose, because you don't need all that. You just need to convey the important parts of the scene to convey the things you're trying to convey, like the emotional arcs, the consequences, the fears, the plot. And then you got to start, less is more. You always got to be cutting things out.
So how does that work when you're like fitting in like the more like mystical parts and like, when it comes to the building of the religion and how, the different fighting styles work. Does it give you more to play with, or do you find like your brain sort of wondering how that would work in a fight? Or does it just kind of give you a little bit more space to play?
I mean, I'm a fan of the wuxia genre in movies, so that's kind of what I like. The Art of Prophecy is my kind of my love letter to like growing up watching these movies. So on one hand, I want to go as fantastic as possible, but on the other hand, you want to be careful because the magic system in the world has to make sense. People have to be able to buy into it. So like a good example I have is like, I played this game earlier this year called Elden Ring, which is a very popular kind of sandbox game. Fantastic game. And I played a wizard because like my thing has always been, I can't be a wizard in real life. So in all my games, I want to be a wizard. And that's great. And as long as I like as a character, as a player, I buy into the concept of being a wizard and casting spells and everything, raining ice and raining fire, whatever, that's fine. I buy into it. I'm immersed in the world. But the one thing that always pulls me out of that game is my wizard, who probably spends many, many, many hours, learning spells. He can do forward and backward and side rolls. He just flips like an Olympic gymnast. And for me, who was a gymnast, that's BS. Okay. You should not be able to do like somersaults all over the place with such grace, unless you've had a lot of training. But as a wizard, why would you wouldn't have that training? If you're wearing heavy armor, you can't do those kind of flips. So that really bothers me. Like I must be one of the only like players in the world who just can't stand seeing like these characters doing like amazing, floor routines while they're wearing armor or doing everything else. So that's what I care about. So I do want fantastic magic, but I want it to be believable, and so it has to be rooted in a way where, in this world, or when the readers are reading about these characters, they don't get pulled out of it because that's the magic sauce.
So, I guess one more question I have. So, is this series optioned for a television series? I believe I had read that somewhere.
Yes, it is currently optioned by Sony, and it's currently in development as a TV show. That's basically all I can say about that.
Very cool. I'm excited. Yeah, that was one of the things when I was doing a little research that kind of popped up, and I thought that was that was pretty awesome. But I do understand that there are wraps around certain things you can talk of.
Right.
Talk
I mean, the thing about optioning is it's a very long journey from something getting optioned to actually something getting made. There's for something to be actually made into like a show or a movie, you need like 100 yeses along every step of the way. And anytime there's a no, the whole thing is dies on the vine. And that's just I mean, the fact is like TV shows and movies are art, and art is extraordinarily hard to make. And especially with the film and television industry, it's not only hard to make, it is incredibly expensive to make. So there's a lot of chefs in the kitchen, to kind of get all of that approved, and it's a tough process. But it's kind of like you gotta have a ticket to play. So as long as it's in development, we're working on it.
Well, I would be excited to see that happen. So there is one more book in this series that is on
I'm
the horizon.
I am working on the third book right now.
Do you have a title or you can't say?
I I have several titles. I have several titles, and it's one of those things where I need to sit down with my editor and the team at Penguin Random House and kind of figure out like, okay, what title makes the most sense? Does it convey what I'm trying to convey? And so it's a process. Titles are hard.
For sure. No, absolutely. And I think you kind of nailed it with the art of prophecy and the art of destiny. So I'm assuming
Thank
it's
you.
going to be the art of
It'd be the art of something, just because
something.
we want to keep some kind of like I have a what's the you want to keep that trend going.
Continuity. Yeah,
Continuity, yes.
yes. Well, I will be very much looking forward to it when it comes out. Again, like I said, it's just a super fun ride to take with these characters. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much for chatting with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And yeah, check out if you have not checked out The Art of Prophecy, check it out. If you have, check out The Art of Destiny. And if you have checked out both of them, check out Wesley Chu's other books. And we'll be waiting for The Art of ... sometime soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
So once again, this was Jessica, and I was here with Wesley Chu, and we are going to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.